Hi, this is William with ArcusStone, and today I'd like to show you our new medium grain lime plaster and what kind of finishes you can achieve with this. It's also good for interior and exterior use. This is the bag that we have right here. It's a 30-pound bag, and today we're going to use the color that's balanced beige. And here are some of the tools you may need in applying the material. Just some like Venetian style trowels, some just miscellaneous tools. We have a paint roller to apply our bonding agent, another texture roller, a hawk, and a little misting bottle. And we're going to see why that we need the misting bottle is so we can clean out our color vial. So let's go ahead and get started with the mixing. And always make sure that you have proper protection with your hands and a mask and eye protection. Want to rinse out your container thoroughly. The lid. And make sure that you spray all the edges so they don't have any extra color sitting up on the top. Now let's go ahead and start adding our material. A little bit at a time. So this is the initial mix. We're going to wait about 8 minutes for this to set, and then we'll come back, we'll break the set, and we're ready for application. All right, so we've waited about 8-9 minutes now, and we're ready to break the set on our material. And if need be, you could add a little bit more liquid to make it the texture consistency that you're going to be looking for. So let's get started. Okay, mixing is complete. So what we're going to do, we're going to skim this whole surface, and we're going to do 3 different textures. So let's just get started. These are going to be some of the popular textures that are easy to do and most people ask for. is going to be our sponge finish. Same idea, you're going to cover the grain so it allows you a little bit more time and you're not sponging through to the base. Just cover up the base coat. And on this last portion, we're going to simulate a stone-like block pattern. So we're going to put the material on and we're going to drag it a little bit, and then we're just going to let it set, so the texture is going to be a little bit rougher and inconsistent, but still less than about 1/16 of an inch in thickness. Alright, so now we're going to flatten our trowel and we're just going to start dragging. So what this dragging is going to do, it's raising some of the material and it's leaving deeper areas, and when we're going to come back later on, we're going to smooth it out. We're going to just smooth out the top, which is going to leave us with some of the textures that are going to simulate a textured, like slight pitting, but very clean. And the reason for this would be if you don't need a heavy profile grout line, you could just basically mark your lines out, and it has high flexural properties, and it's all natural, of course. So let's go ahead and wait for this to set, and we'll come back and start finishing once it's dry enough. All right, so we're back. We've given the finish some time to set, so that'll allow us to knock down the texture to what we're looking for. And before I get started, I just want to also remind you that what I did was put all the material on in a skim coat way ahead, but if you want, you can actually do this in one coat. So you just do a tight coat and then just double back on it right away and put your finished thickness on and just keep on moving, so you don't have to have extra work going ahead and coming back and moving. You could just do it as you're going. That's the beauty of this product. So let's go ahead and get started knocking this down. It's dry to the touch, it's not sticking to my hands. And you can get it a little bit sooner if you want, depending on what you're trying to get after. And what I'm going to do here is just knock down the sand type finish that's left behind on the initial trowel. We're just going to go after a very subtle, smooth finish. This is great for exteriors, very forgiving, or if you have an orange peel texture inside a house and want to just do it in one coat, you can really work this to a nice smooth finish. And there you have it. So, when this is going to dry, and if you have time, you can still follow back and knock down if you had some cream marks that were sticking to your trowel. Really nothing to be concerned with. And you're going to have nice subtle movement in the finish. So here we're going to get to the sponge finish, and what I like to do is start out with a dry sponge, and you can see how easy this is to clean up. Just wipes right off your trowel. There is no smell. This is one of the beautiful things about this also, that you can work indoors and you don't smell anything. So we're just going to see how it works with the dry sponge, and we're just going to work it in a circular motion. And it seems to be working just fine. If you need to, you could dampen your sponge. Always work in a circular motion. Kind of even your finish out. If it's too wet and it's streaking behind, just move on to a different area and come back to it. And you can lighten up your pressure, the amount of pressure you put on the surface. So right now, as you're going, you're going to notice that there are the little grains of sand that are brought up to the top from sponging. We're going to let that rest for a little bit, and then we'll just come back with a clean, dry sponge, and we'll knock those off so we don't have that heavy grit sand feel. You'll just have a nice texture there that conceals everything underneath. All right, so here we're going to change our method a little bit. This is what I like to do, is kind of like a monolithic stone type texture, and it's a little bit tricky in the sense that I like to introduce water, and you don't always have to do that. It just allows you to glide over the surface a little bit more. So we could try and see what it does without any water, and it might just be fine. So we're just going to apply a little bit more texture, and actually in this case we really don't need, at this point, any water. If it was starting to set up a little bit more, we could just mist it with some water, and it just closes the surface up. And what that's also going to do, it's going to give us a little bit more highlighting from the water being introduced. And you can see how fast that is. Trowel is pretty clean. So at this point now, we're going to wait a little bit more on this one, because what we're going to do is, a lot of times I'll have a design already pre-planned, and what we'll do is we'll follow that design, and you'll use a large level depending on the pattern you have, and a smaller level. So the long levels are going to be typically to do your horizontals, and the smaller level is going to be for the vertical. And I can use a couple different types of tools for making my design, a few different. You have our pointy trowel. We have a carbide cutting double edge scoring tool, and this is just a 1/4 inch pointing trowel. So I can just show you a couple examples with the different kinds. We'll just go ahead and start. We're going to use the 1/4 inch, and we're just going to put a little bit of pressure into the material, just kind of digging in a little bit, not all the way through, and then we're going to flatten, use the flatter side, and this is going to create a shadow line. And this is why I don't like to usually work when it's too wet, because it messes up the finish underneath. That's how easy it is to work with. And we'll just do one more line over here, just for the kicks of it. All right, next one we're going to use is our sharp pointed trowel. And this is going to resemble a tighter grout line. This one right here, this is the carbide. It's going to be a little bit rougher. It's going to dig in a little bit more, so we're going to have to wait till it's more dry to use that one. And we're just going to wait a little bit, and what we'll do is we'll come back and we'll just kind of clean up some of the texture, making sure that pattern doesn't follow through the two blocks. It goes really quick. Okay, so we've given it a little bit more time now. You can start to see a little bit more of the drying occurring. And we're going to use the carbide cutting tool. And what that's going to do, it's going to open up our grout line just a little bit more. And let's just go ahead and get started so we can see what kind of shadow line it's going to give us. It leaves a little bit of a rougher edge as well, but don't be worried about that. Okay, so one thing that I like to do when I'm doing a pattern like this is I cut it while it was moderately fresh, and to create a little bit more dimension and variation between the blocks, we'll come back with a couple different size trowels. Sometimes I'll pick a smaller one, and we'll just kind of work it a little bit more to bring a little bit more depth and color change, and even the texture. And you can do this at many different stages throughout the drying period here. Why would I choose this? I would probably do this in an area where, first of all, I don't need a lot of really deep profiled lines, and it's great for buildings that have a lot of high deflection and you don't want to deal with cracking. It's a perfect alternative. So of course this is a dry sponge, and you can see the little granules sitting on top, and we're just going to work this again in a very light. We just want to knock the grains off. And by doing that, there's still enough moisture in the product to close it up, so it's giving it a slight patina and knocking off the grains at the same time. It's almost just like sweeping, but just very gentle. And if you need to do an adjustment, you can just adjust the amount of pressure that you're applying. And folks, that's how it's done. It is that easy. This will turn out to be a very beautiful, subtle moving wall. And if you have any questions, please contact us at ArcusStone.com for samples or any other questions you may have.